Hello, my lovely PowerCats, and welcome back to Enigmarella. Where we last left off, Alice Ronner finally met her, would-be husband, Lord Girling. So, let's see what happens.
Right at that moment, a man walked into the room, followed by Lantier and Girling. The man was dressed in an outfit I'd never seen before, and carrying some sort of peculiar machine. What's going on here?
Your Highness?
Inquisitor. Oh, that's not good.
My lady.
I could tell Girling did not like him by the way his blue eyes narrowed. Who?
I am Inquisitor Bloom. I come here on behalf of Her Majesty, the Empress of Persadia, to corroborate that this wedding takes place within the regulations of the Persadian custom.
He placed the strange device on Lantier's desk and opened it. I couldn't tell exactly what it was, or what it was supposed to do. What I did recognize, however, was the sharp needle he retrieved from a small container.
I will need a sample of your blood to confirm your identity.
What? How do you...
The Empire of Persadia keeps a blood sample among other records of each noble person there is. That is how we protect you from other impersonators. This is all basic information written clearly in the Persadian custom, my lady. I suggest you start reading it at once.
Are you here to take our samples, or to give my fiancée a lecture?
My apologies, Your Highness. I just find myself filled with concern that the betrothed of the Lord Regent of this island may not be familiar with the traditions upon which she should have been raised. Please, my lady, if you could step closer, I believe it is imperative that we confirm your identity first.
Please, Miss Alice. Do as the Inquisitor says.
It's like really on eggshells right here.
Please. We wouldn't want to keep him any longer than necessary.
I stepped closer, and the Inquisitor took my hand. He pricked my finger with the needle and pressed it against the device. The machine buzzed for a moment, and a small piece of paper came out from the other side. The Inquisitor took the paper and nodded.
I hereby certify that this young woman is, in fact, Baroness Alice Victoria Rana, daughter of Baron Gabriel Rana, and his legitimate wife, Baroness Elizabeth Rana, née Elizabeth Winter, both of them deceased.
As if there were any doubt.
Your Highness, if you please.
Girling smirked and took a step forward, extending his right hand. The Inquisitor took another needle from the container and repeated the process. This time, however, the machine emitted a screeching sound, and red lights flashed from its sides.
This cannot be.
Is there a problem?
There must have been a mistake. The results appear incompatible, and not only with the nobility records, but also with any type of blood known to mankind.
Oh, what the heck?
So you're saying I'm not human?
I wouldn't be surprised.
There must be.
Had I been able to choose my form, I would rather have been an octopus.
This is...
I love this.
May I suggest you try an alternative method, fingerprints perhaps?
I suppose.
Girling extended his hand again.
By all means.
For this method I require both hands, Your Highness.
Read your file, Inquisitor. It fills me with concern that the person assigned to verify the marriage of the Lord Regent of this island may not be familiar with the circumstances of the people he is supposed to examine.
I turned to look at Girling's hands. He was wearing a black leather glove on the left one. I hadn't given it much thought before, but now that it had been brought to my attention, it really stood out from his outfit. Yet again, some gut feeling told me it was better not to ask. The Inquisitor's face turned all shades of red. He fumbled with his belongings until he was able to find the correct document.
My apologies, Your Highness. I was not aware.
Let's see this finished.
The Inquisitor extended a plate on the device, and Girling pressed his right hand against it. This time, the process went by smoothly.
I hereby certify that this man is indeed His Highness Duke Faust Gerling, Lord Regent of the island of Nova Corsa, son of...
A bitch.
I know who my parents were. I don't need to be reminded.
With the identities of both parties legally confirmed, I hereby declare that this marriage has the blessing and approval of Her Majesty Empress Lena Lee Langley, ruler of all Persadia and Chief Admiral of all our fleets. The ceremony may now proceed as planned.
In that case, we better get this wedding thing over and done with.
Before you declare your vows to one another, it is necessary for you to confirm that it is, in fact, your desire to be married, that you have come here freely and without reservations to be joined as husband and wife before the eyes of our Lord and Father Neptune.
I mean, define willingly. Well, I mean, freely.
Now that you mention it, Your Honor, I do not...
Your Honor, let me remind you that this is the nobility ritual.
Oh, thank you, Lantier. Real nice.
Oh, is it now? Well then, that last part is irrelevant.
Oh, that's wonderful.
By the power vested upon me by our Lord and Father Neptune, I pronounce you man and wife.
Just like that!
Yep.
Well, my lady, if there's anything you wanted to say...
May the Lord of the Depth devour the souls and entrails of those who have dragged me here against my will, and may his infinite rage fall upon them, so that they all experience tenfold the suffering inflicted upon me on this day.
Alice.
We should get that embroidered on a pillow or something.
I love this guy.
Your insufferable husband.
Oh, don't say that.
Saying goodbye to the Institute was a lot harder than I thought. All my life, I'd yearned for the day when I would finally be out of there for good. And now that it was finally happening, I felt more confused and lonely than ever before. For I was not only saying goodbye to the only home I could remember, even with its prison walls and barred windows, but I was also leaving behind my own girlhood and venturing off into the uncertainty of my arranged marriage. The carriage stopped moving, and Lord Girling extended his ungloved hand to help me out. We were finally home, and I was officially married. If I was to make a decision on whether or not I wanted to consummate this marriage, this was the time.
Because, like, on one hand, Alice is only saying she doesn't want to get married because she's kind of ticked off about, like, the situation, but at the same time, she's mildly attracted to Girling. So it's like... But also, I don't really want to have to edit out a nude scene again, so... I'm gonna say no for now. I don't like editing. Well, I do edit, but still.
I felt a strong sense of déjà vu as we walked into the hall. as if I had been there before, in my prior life to the Institute. I chose to ignore the sensation. Trying to bring back memories of that time had never done me any good. And there were more pressing matters at hand. He remained silent and contemplative, as if lost in deep thought. Probably going over all the deranged plans he had for our wedding night. My hand moved slowly to the knife, careful not to be noticed. If I was to succeed, I needed the element of surprise on my side. I took a deep breath and waited for him to make a move on me. He looked back at me, his expression changing from blank to intrigued. I wasn't entirely sure, but I almost perceived the hint of a grin. He remained silent, however, observing me as though I were the most amusing thing in the world to him. But the air in the room had gotten so thick with tension that I could have cut right through it with my concealed blade. Was he expecting me to make the first move? The look in his blue eyes revealed nothing, and that frightened me. All of my strategies had been built around the moment when he would throw himself at me. I was prepared to defend myself against an imminent assault. Even if I was to surrender in the end, I would have faced defeat with the dignity of resistance. But this muted uncertainty was more than I could bear. Without taking his eyes off me, he took a step forward.
Talk first.
All right, my lord. I understand that this is our wedding night, but don't you think for 1 second...
It's fine. Miss Hall will be here in a moment to escort you to your bedroom.
Oh.
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, he's really nice.
Just like that.
Yes.
Is there a problem?
Not really. It's just that, well, I actually expected you to be more insistent on, you know.
Why would I do that?
What? Am I not pretty enough for you?
You definitely are. But why would that justify me trying to...
Because I'm your wife.
Girling likes consent. He a good guy.
Well, I guess I'm just not into taking an unwilling partner into my bed, even if she's beautiful, and even if she's my wife.
Yeah. Consent is key.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the only decent thing to do.
Can I still have a hug? Just so I don't feel like I overreacted for nothing.
Aww.
He pulled me close to him, wrapping his arms around me in a gentle but firm embrace. I closed my eyes, feeling my heart leaping within my chest and my cheeks burning with anxiety. This was it. He was but, to my honest surprise, he just held me like that, in the most comforting of hugs, his fingers lightly stroking on my back. Slowly, I felt my tension and anxiety begin to dissipate. This was all right. My locket began ticking. At first, I thought it was only the accelerated beatings of my own heart. It had never done that before.
It was probably connected to him somehow.
Please, just don't hurt me. I could feel the faint brush of his lips caress my temple, the warm touch of his breath upon my skin. 1,000 electric sparks of fear and excitement prickled all over my body.
Am I hurting you now?
Not...
Then what makes you think it is my intention to do so?
I...
Nobody is going to hurt you.
I looked up at him, not really sure what to say in response. All of my cautions were forgotten in favor of the perilous desire that was engulfing me, mixed with the warmth of his body. I rested my hand on his left arm, but he pulled away from me as fast as he could.
Get some sleep, Alice. You look tired.
I nodded in disheartened understanding. It had only been for a moment, but I hadn't failed to notice the reason for his sudden discomfort. When I had touched his left arm, what I'd felt had not been flesh, but rather metal, a prosthetic. I would have never been able to tell had I not touched him. His movements were so natural that it was barely noticeable. A memory flashed within my mind's eye for an instant, as a blurry vision invaded my thoughts. I could barely make out the figure of a man in a white coat. My father, most likely. There were various mechanical parts scattered around him. This didn't make any sense. None of my fragmented memories ever did.
I think her dad helped him.
My bedroom was spacious, large enough to fit in at least 6 girls from the Institute. Maybe it was a little big. Too big. I'd spent a large part of the night just tossing and turning, unable to sleep amongst the excess of oppressive silence and lavish space. I found myself wondering what it would have been like to spend the night in his arms instead. I blushed, shaking those naughty thoughts away from my head. I had survived my wedding night with my virtues still intact. That was a good thing, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, if you think it is.
However, I was still so curious about him. Was he sleeping? And if that was the case, where was he sleeping? Did he sleep with his door locked or unlocked? Would it be too much if I just snuck a little peek? I tiptoed out of my bed and into the rest of the house. It was dark, a bit too dark for my taste. The only door that was open was the one leading into the library. He didn't notice me right away. Therefore, I had a moment to secretly admire him in the moonlight. He was sitting on the floor by the window, looking through a telescope with a platter of cookies right beside him. He turned to look at me, and I could have sworn his blue eyes appeared to be glowing amidst the shadows of his face.
Can't sleep.
I shrugged. It's too quiet.
I should have known you'd be used to having all the girls around you.
I sat down next to him. The library's floor felt frigid and uncomfortable through my light nightgown. I suddenly realized that this flimsy dress was all I was wearing. I hoped he wouldn't notice. He'd discarded his jacket, and I could see the contours of his body bulging beneath his shirt.
Cookie?
He pushed the platter closer to me. Those were sea monster cookies. The best in town.
I like that. A big, elegant guy, and he likes cookies.
I wouldn't have guessed you liked cookies.
Everyone likes cookies. I just happen to like them more than most people.
Fair enough.
You can't sleep either.
No. Everything's so still that it makes me restless just to try.
So you watch the stars instead. He smiled softly.
They give me a sense of direction.
You speak like a sailor.
Do I?
looked up at the sky as I munched on a cookie. There was a strange serenity all around us. A recognizable fellowship between our situated forms. It was almost nostalgic, as though we'd done this many times before.
Did you have any major plans for after you'd left the Institute?
Not really. I never thought Lantier was going to let me out.
And now?
Now I know I can't have him. I never paid much attention to all that nobility business till it was too late.
It's stupid, isn't it? That whole Poseidon custom.
Have you read it?
I know it by heart. That doesn't mean I agree with it.
Care to give me the basics? I never made it past the first 3 pages.
Let's start from the beginning. A long time ago, what is now known as the Empire of Poseidia was nothing more than a conglomerate of several independent islands. Each one was ruled by an admiral with a fleet powerful enough to claim it for themselves. This kept everyone in a constant battle to see who could take the land from whom.
And then the almighty Admiral Jacques Langley united all into our blessed empire and blah 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 blah. Believe it or not, I do know the story of Poseidia. But what does it have to do with our marriage?
I'm guessing Admiral Jacques knew the only way to stop the war was to divide the land among the officers. He took the largest portion, that'd be the capital, and gave each one of the other admirals the title of Duke and the control of a full island. Then he gave smaller portions of each to the rest, creating the nobility system. However, in order to call themselves the owners of the land, they had to forego their right to sail freely. It was the first rule of the Poseidon custom. No highborn shall ever commandeer a ship unless it is in the defense of the Empire. Since we, titles, are the only ones allowed to own a piece of land, it was decreed that the egalitarians, the eggs, should be the only ones authorized to sail, trade, and profit from their work in any way.
But my father was a doctor.
Yes, but he could not make any money off it. What he did purely for the love of medicine. Another one of the rules is that titles can only marry titles, and eggs can only marry eggs. We don't mix.
And we're not allowed to date.
No, we titles are not. We arrange marriages for the good of Poseidia. That was because in the early days the battle for the islands left one too many grudges, and binding us titles by blood was the only way to prevent us from killing each other. However, adultery among titles is often overlooked. It's not uncommon for married couples to have their mistresses and lovers living with them.
I see. Are you going to... I mean, do you have a mistress or something?
No. I have personal reasons to keep away from such practices. But I will not judge you if you do.
As if. The closest thing I ever had to a boyfriend apart from you was the chaser. And that relationship exists mostly in my head.
The chaser?
He is...
He kind of kidnapped you from your room.
I looked down.
Are you alright?
It may be weird to talk about this with you of all people, but I guess there are some things about me that you should know. When I was a child, something happened to me. I have forgotten most of my life before the Institute. The circumstances surrounding my father's death were too much for me to handle. In order to protect itself, my mind chose to wipe away all of my memories. However, every now and then I get this feeling of familiarity. I can sometimes feel as though I knew someone from before, or if I've been somewhere prior. I just can't remember the specifics, like names or faces. The strongest of those feelings is about a boy I once knew. I called him the Chaser. I knew he meant the world to me, but I can't remember anything else about him.
I see.
I guess you could say that I'm sort of broken in a way. I don't know if I'll ever remember everything, and I'm not really sure I want to. He smiled sadly at me, and only then did I realize the implications of what I'd said about being broken.
Oh, because he has a prosthetic.
I guess it's only fair to tell you that I'm broken too.
Mm-mm.
He took a deep breath, as if he were summoning all of his courage.
There is a reason why I always wear a glove on my left hand.
I know, alright? I sort of figured it out. You don't have to mention it if you don't want to. Just know that it's alright. It doesn't bother me in the least. We spent most of the night eating cookies and talking. After our mutual confessions, the sense of familiarity between us flourished. It was like we were old friends having a conversation at a slumber party. I did most of the talking, and it was great to have someone who would listen to all my ramblings without ever questioning my sanity. In the end, I did fall asleep in his arms that night after all.
Alice! Alice! Wake up!
Nina!
I woke up in my bed. He must have carried me there. Nina? What are you doing here?
Are you all right? Did he hurt you?
What? Oh, you mean...
I've heard it's all so foul and painful.
Oh. Yeah.
He didn't want to, you know. He sent me straight to bed.
What did you do?
I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. This room is way too silent. So I went out to look for him.
For Neptune's sake, Alice!
Well, I was kind of curious. He married me. And then on our wedding night, when he had every opportunity to do whatever he wanted to me, he just ended up sending me to bed. I needed to see what he was doing instead. So I followed him into the library.
Oh my! What happened then?
We ate cookies and talked.
That is strange.
He's a strange man. But there's something about him.
You do like him, don't you?
Yes.
Well, I just came in to wake you up and see how you were. We were all so worried about you.
Surprised he let Nina in.
I'll walk you home. There's no sign of life around here anyway.
Okay. So, we're at 28 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it short today because my computer is getting a little hot. If you want to watch the other videos, they're in a playlist now, so that's cool. If you want to follow my social media, it'll be down in the description. And I'll see you in the next video. So goodbye, everyone.